Welcome back to the Real Estate Huddle. We're glad you joined us today because we're going to be talking about real estate conspiracy theories, right? Ooh. Spicy. It's going to be awesome. And every job has myths, right? And real estate has full-blown conspiracy theories, from Zillow secretly fixing prices to banks hiding thousands of foreclosures to agents keeping the good deals for themselves. We've heard it all. So today we're going to be...
And they're all true.
Yes. They are. Wait, no, they aren't. We're going to be breaking down the wildest real estate conspiracies that we hear from our clients and deciding once and for all which ones have some truth and which ones may be more like the X-Files. So let's get right into it. First on the list, is Zillow really fixing prices?
So the theory is that Zillow purposely inflates their estimates to influence prices, target neighborhoods, or help Zillow-owned homes sell faster. And what's really going on here is that estimates come from algorithms, not people making decisions. So the algorithm pulls from tax records, public MLS data in allowed markets, recent sales, square footage, neighborhood averages, condition assumptions, which are often wrong. And another part of why people think Zillow manipulates prices is because of large price jumps after updates. And then there was the Zillow offers era that created a lot of distrust, and as well as automated changes feeling intentional when really it's just a guess. So actually the truth about this is there are many proven inaccuracies and as much as 5 to 20% off in certain neighborhoods. So a lot of those guesses are 5 to 20% off.
So median error rate for Zillow is like 8% across the country, right? So 5 to 20% depending on the market. Some markets they're way off, and even within our market, like sometimes they're way off base on like certain houses or certain neighborhoods, and then others they're spot on, on others. Yeah. So, but I can't believe how many times I've seen a Zillow like a Zestimate that's at 780, right? And then we list a property for 825, and all of a sudden the Zestimate climbs up to whatever our list price was, and it matches the list price. So I would say that they're more being followers and like matching list prices of homes on the actual property that gets listed. And the same happens inverse, right? If they're 850 and we list something at 825, they come down, right? And like the next day it's down to wherever the list price was. So basically their thought is we're going to use algorithms to like get it as good as we can. But the minute a price is established by a real estate agent and a homeowner, then they're going to try to get to that price or edge to it a little bit more, which to me, that gives a little less credibility in like Zillow's algorithm, because a seller can price anywhere they really want to, right? Mm-hmm. And so can an agent like influence people to overprice their home a ton. So to me, it's just kind of, I don't know, it gives me less of a desire to really, take Zestimates to the bank.
Yeah. If you're serious about knowing, definitely ask your agent or get a CMA.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, ask your agent. Your agent can probably do a much more accurate CMA report for you than looking it up on Zillow or maybe some other websites.
But don't ask a bad agent. Ask a good agent.
Right.
And after all that Zillow's been through, whether people, I don't know, maybe people don't know Zillow's history as much, but I still feel like so many people put so much stock into Zillow as like gospel almost, and it's so not at all. It's the exact opposite, quite honestly. But
it's like such a cool, trendy thing to do, right? So I was looking at a home on Zillow, and like they've done such a good job with their branding. Their marketing has been phenomenal, like next level as far as their brand goes. But yeah, their accuracy is pretty awesome.
Zillow was my favorite until I got licensed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then you know the truth.
Yep.
Right. Well, and the same. It's not just for Zillow. Zillow is kind of a Band-Aid term for all of them. Mm-hmm. It's like Zillow, Realtor, even Homes.com. They're actually pretty dang good, but it's more like agent input on that one. But I think Zillow, especially in the market for like Colorado, the hard part that Zillow has to deal with as well is we have like the valleys and the plains of Colorado, and then you have like the mountains of Colorado, and the way that those are valued are completely different. So when you lump in it as a state or like as just Denver metro area, and you still have some mountain areas in there, like completely throws everything off. Mm-hmm. You just have some major inaccuracies, especially when you're in like counties like Summit County and stuff. And it's very odd. Wow. All their comparisons.
We fully realize we're ripping on some people's like puppy here with Zillow, right? It's like their true joy is looking at homes on Zillow, and we have addicts too in the audience.
No,
I'm sure.
Zillow is great for
absolute addicts.
supplemental searches. Like if you want to search for a house and you're just like everybody has this with their, whether you're doing a single or with your significant other, you're in bed and you're both, or you're just scrolling on Zillow. It's awesome. You can find your house that way.
Yeah.
It's great for searching, but.
And I think visually it like looks, it's like very easy to use,
Yeah.
you know, like very user friendly. So
Yeah, very much so.
yeah.
Very much so.
I don't know. When I'm in bed with my wife, I like to do different things besides scrolling Zillow, but to each their own. It's great. All right. So moving along. While Zillow gets blamed for market manipulation, there's a whole another story out there. Okay. And this has been probably the biggest conspiracy theory and rumor that I've heard for years. All right. That the government foreclosures are hiding thousands of homes, right? In this shadow inventory market of homes that are just sitting there that nobody has any interest in doing anything with, literally been sitting vacant for years since the Great Recession is just out there. And sometime it's going to hit the market and just flood our inventory. I've literally heard that since 2011. And there was some truth to it back then. Like in 2008, 9, 10, 11, we did accumulate a ton of foreclosures and they couldn't keep up with all of them. And so they had to just sit on some of them until they could perform because they didn't want to overflood the market because we had 28,000 homes back then. And so with that said, nowadays, we have a more balanced number. We have 10,900 homes in the 7-county Denver metro area. We just learned today because we check every week. And that number is way more balanced in our market. And so there is this thought of thousands of homes is completely false. Fast forward, 12, 13 years from when we came out of the Great Recession. And now all those homes are gone. They've all sold through. And our inventory today that we have is pretty true. That it's not something that's just lurking in the background. So I truly believe that. And I mean, think about the consequences, right? That banks have of sitting on properties. They have maintenance fees, they have insurance, they have legal fees, they have vandalism risk, they have HOA dues, property taxes. Why on earth would they do that? Right? They did it for a little period of time because they were conscious about completely flooding the market. But those days are over. And today, foreclosure data, if you look it up, it shows historic lows. It's so rare. I have people that reach out to us going, hey, I'm interested in buying a HUD home. I looked on HUD's website the other day. There was one in the entire market on HUD. Yeah. And I'm
very limited.
It does not happen very often. I'm working right now on a VA foreclosure that's owned by the Veterans Administration. It's very rare. There's 3 of those in our market. So you just don't see them very often. And so if you reach out asking for a list of foreclosures, it's going to be a 1-pager right now. They're still so uncommon. And people think we're in tough times, the affordability issues and stuff. Yes. But the reason why there's hardly any of these is because not everybody, but a lot of people have really big amounts, record amounts of equity in their homes. And because of all the gains that we've had. So anyone that's owned their home for more than 3 years has equity enough to sell their home and get out of it, right? Where in other markets, that has not been the case. Coming out of the Great Recession in 2010, 11, we were in record lows, for equity that people had in their homes because a lot of people were underwater. That's why you had so many short sales, foreclosures that led to all that whole mess. So that's the takeaway. And speaking of control, let's talk about a conspiracy that gets brought up every single time interest rates move, even a quarter point.
I might believe this one actually. I'm just kidding. Well, maybe. A secret group controls interest rates. That's the conspiracy on this one, right? Now, I think the reason people say this is because we are kind of in a weird time, politically, financially, economically, all that good stuff. And I guess not good stuff, but it feels like every time we have some type of move in the market, especially with rates, this always gets brought up is who's really controlling this market? Who's really controlling, who's profiting off this market, who's suffering in this market, and who's targeting who, and blah, 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 blah. When in reality, it's a culmination of things that really control. When we're talking about the market, usually it's more about rates, like mortgage rates, right? Or the prime rate or whatever. the Federal Reserve, they don't set a mortgage rate. Okay, so the mortgage rate is actually a byproduct, not a byproduct, but it's under the umbrella of the prime rate, which is somewhat manipulated by the Fed, I guess you could say. But the mortgage rate is actually it's more based off like the bond market, mortgage-backed securities, shifts in like the global economy, like wars, things
Major
like that.
world events.
Yep, just like the big events that are going on in the world, and then you have, the jobs report, inflation rates, all that kind of stuff that really affect all that kind of stuff, like the prime rate, which then affects the mortgage rates. And it's, I wouldn't call it algorithm based. I think it's just more of like even I don't fully understand it either.
Market based.
Yeah. It's just kind of like what the market's doing or what the market's going to do and things like that. And it's not so much of a group of billionaires or corporations or whatever it is that are saying, we need to move it this way so that we can do this or they can do this or they can suffer or whatever it is. It's just kind of how the market flows and how we adjust in order to, prop up this or help this economy in this area or whatever it is. So at least that's how I understand it. I am not a lender. I have no financial, just let's make that very clear. If you have more questions on this, definitely talk to your lenders and your financial advisors and things like that. But
and economists, they're right half the time. So talk to them.
Everyone's right at least twice a day.
I mean, it's gotten personal though for a lot of people because they can't afford housing, and if you're on the outside looking in, it sucks. Like just being on the outside, going like, "This is stupid. Why can't like prices just come down?" Right?
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of people calling for like 20-30% price decreases, and that's just not the way that the housing market works, especially here in Denver when we're like a steady growth market. But like a lot of people just feel like Jerome Powell has been just holding out. And as the Federal Reserve Chair, like not adjusting rates appropriately and just been stubborn, and that's what's keeping things unaffordable. But what they don't realize, like Spencer was saying, is like it's just one element to a number of elements that control interest rates. And there have been times where the government has stepped in and really controlled interest rates. Like during that 10-year span where we were during the Obama years and then during some of the Trump years, on both sides, you had government leaders agreeing to absolutely support buying more mortgage-backed securities so that they could supplement the rates downward, right? And make those
complete
less.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
On both
and so,
sides.
Keeping the rates low for as long as they did, absolutely, threw some things off and made it so that we were, keeping those rates lower than they should have been. So,
I sympathize with a lot of these people too because it's you want to try to figure out like who's to blame for all this and like why is this making my life worse and especially as a parent with kids. You're like, well, what does this mean for my kids moving forward? Like, if we can't even afford a house now, what's it going to look like in 10 years, right? Or whatever. And it's definitely concerning. And you want answers. You want to know who's responsible. You want to know who should be taking accountability. And the reality is, people can manipulate it to an extent, but it is just an accumulation of a bunch of different factors that affect affordability, and especially in Colorado, it's where we're kind of a higher end market. So it just comes down to a lot of like, there's not too much control you can have on that. So it's tough, and it's going to continue to be tough for a little bit. We are hoping and we're optimistic that by next year, hopefully by January, we're going to start to see. We're already seeing inventory come down in Denver already as of today. Like Landon said, we check it every week, and we've made a slight drop again. And then we know the Fed just cut the rate, and that actually adjusted the mortgage rate upwards, which I know people are like, well, that doesn't make sense, and I'm not going to get into that, but sometimes that happens. However, sometimes after a blip up, sometimes we start to see it trickle down again. So I would prepare yourself if you are looking to buy or looking into that avenue. Definitely start now. Like get with your lender, start figuring out, because if you can beat that time where it does drop and inventory drops and it's just a hectic, crazy mania of home buying again, you'll be in front. So,
yep, definitely. Yeah. So subsidizing, that was the word I was looking for earlier. So that happened for a long time. But anyways, this is
late to the game.
And it was all about control back then, right? And so speaking of control, there's an idea that Wall Street, right, or big time like billionaires are buying up every home in America, right? Or they have this huge supply and they're just like corporations are buying all these homes and not leaving anything for home buyers that are just normal home buyers that are trying to get into this market. And so let's talk about that one.
Yeah, so I think really everybody's like, well, I can't get a house because all 50% of the houses are, already eaten up by investors. And kind of this myth comes from like TikTok. There's like TikTok influencers that are like, we're buying all these houses or we're renovating all these houses or, whatever. Or even just like people that rent, their rent is rising and they're getting frustrated about that. And they are blaming the corporations and all of that when it's kind of like other things that we've talked about in this podcast. When really the actual number is under 3% of all single family homes nationwide are actually
investor owned.
Yeah, investor owned. And in Denver, that's 1%. It's only 1% in Denver, 3% nationwide. So, that conspiracy that investors are kind of eating everything up isn't necessarily the case at all, actually. There's still a lot of opportunities, a lot of homes on the market that are affordable, that are easy to get eaten up.
I think a lot of what we see in Colorado too is because we're kind of one of those higher end markets where affordability is, even harder than what you'd find elsewhere. And investors, don't get me wrong, investors are everywhere in Colorado. We get calls from investors, or I probably get about 5 texts a day from an investor saying, "Hey, I'd love to be on your investor list," or "Hey, any off market properties that you'd like to send me before you hit the market." I get those texts all the time. So they are definitely active, but it's a little harder with where rates are and where affordability is in general, just to find a good deal. So these investors aren't like buying everything up. They're just trying to find, they're very active, very, very active.
Yeah.
But it's got to be the right deal for it to make sense for them. So, and they're not finding a ton of those right now.
And this was happening. Like investors, they have a ton of data, right? So like these big corporations, they're working on massive amounts of data that project things for them and show like which markets could grow, which markets could be stagnant over the next 5 years. And so we did, like back in 2013, there was a company called Home Partners of America that was a corporation that had a huge slush fund in New York City, and they were buying a bunch of properties, about 50 per month at one point in Denver. And that was a big deal. And so I think a lot of people like remember those days, and they saw, that they had the foresight to see that there was going to be like 10 plus years of appreciation, like pretty strong appreciation in Denver, where most people's market or homes more than doubled during that time. And so they had a business model that was basically they connected tenants with realtors, right? So they had, if there was a tenant who wanted a lease from them, they would us as realtors, we could partner up with the tenant, and it was like we could get them into a lease and then receive a compensation as if we helped them buy a place, and then they would lease with the option to be able to purchase that place over the next however many years they wanted. And I know people that have rented from Home Partners of America for 10 plus years now, and they never bought. And I also know of people who rented and then they purchased their home and made a ton of equity, from working with Home Partners. And their model was it goes up 5% per year. Every year the price went up 5%. Every year the rent amount went up 3.5%. And so they just had it calculated where they knew they were either going to make money long term over holding the rental, or they were going to make money from maybe the short term and then actually selling it to the purchaser. And so they couldn't lose in those cases because they knew that Denver's market was going to continue to project higher growth. And so they stopped buying homes. We were working with them back in like 2000, I would say 18, 19, and we made an offer on a place, and they were like, the highest we'll go is like, it was like 80,000 low on this place. And I was like, you guys used to be like competitive, like willing to pay market value for homes. And then all of a sudden they just cooled off, and they basically stopped buying like hardly anything in Denver during that time. And I bet they wish they would have, because the pandemic came next and it just blew the roof off with appreciation, 33% in 2 years. So they would have been smart to keep buying back then, but they kind of really slowed down. And we're not seeing hardly any of that as far as like real corporations with slush funds that are buying up these homes. That doesn't happen as often. But we do see private investors that are coming in and private buying homes, turning them into rentals, and that's still happening for sure, because people can still get a great cash on cash return that's probably similar to what you can get in the stock market, but then you get appreciation, tax advantages, all the other things on top of that, besides just your cash flow. And so I think that's why, I think smart investors are buying and holding real estate still for the long term. And that is competing with active buyers right now in the market. So there's still some truth, but I think it's more at a private level than just like a public corporation level now, compared to what it was before. So awesome. All right. Well, we'll finish with one that always stings a little for real estate agents, because it questions our integrity directly. This is the rumor that agents hide the best deals for themselves. Right. So if we spot a great deal, we're not reaching out to our buyers who are owner occupants, that we're just trying to buy it up ourselves and create this portfolio. And that could be true for some agents, I wouldn't put it past all the agents in our industry, but some truths about this is MLS rules. Like if the property gets listed, it requires equal exposure. So it has to be exposed to everyone in the market. But some of these properties aren't even getting to the MLS. So that's where I see this rumor being true in some of these cases. But then agents are legally and ethically required to present all offers that they get. And so like if you're a listing agent, you just have in the back of your mind, like, I'm going to buy this house. Like if you list it on the MLS, you still have to present every offer that comes in. So that's not going away. And then, most agents, if they're smart, they don't want to risk their license, that's making them money over, a $20,000 deal. Like usually that license is a lot more valuable than just making a little money on a deal or shaving some price off. And then, in hot markets, homes absolutely sell quickly. And sometimes like there's just this assumption when a home sells fast that somebody cheated somebody, right? Or somebody got away with just like grabbing this house before anybody else could get to it, or someone wasn't playing fair. And that happened a lot during the pandemic, I feel like, where people kind of had that mindset, but not as much now. But we're still seeing some off-market deals happen before they hit the MLS, and that does happen every now and then.
And I think the other thing to add is, just because it's an off-market deal, like it's not always this case scenario. Like it's not always a case where the agent is getting it.
Right.
I mean, there's been times where it's like, if the agent knows a good buyer, knows a good seller, it's a match.
Yep.
That's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Totally.
Or
but
selling to family or something too.
Totally.
Yeah.
So sometimes those don't hit the market, but that doesn't mean, necessarily that they got the best deal or cheated the system or anything like that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really advantageous to a seller to not have to show their house, right? And they just already have a buyer lined up that's the perfect buyer for the place, and it just works out that way. So that absolutely can happen, and there's nothing legally wrong with that. So, so I would say like the takeaway here is, I don't think that most agents hide deals, but the best listings that look great, that are really good buys, they do sell quickly. So you have to be on it if you're looking to find something like that.
Scroll Zillow in your bed.
Yeah, I will say though, I have met being in this industry for a little while, there are some really interesting agents out there.
Oh yeah.
Just very interesting people. And so I'm sure it's happened many a time, but that I'd say it's not a common thing. So,
Yep.
But
Definitely.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think we put some of these to bed. If you have more questions about them, definitely reach out. But real estate comes with a lot of emotion, a lot of opinions, like we saw today, and a lot of conspiracy theories. We've only gone over like 5, but there's definitely more.
To finish, do you guys believe that there are there's a colony of lizard people under the Denver International Airport.
I believe it.
Yeah, I do too.
Every time I see that evil Bronco's eyes.
Have we been to the moon? I don't know.
Many a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
A whole episode about non-real estate conspiracy theories. We could do a whole episode about just the Denver International Airport.
There we go.
I think it's worth it.
That would be exciting. We get all kinds of comments on that.
Just food for thought, just a quick plug in there. You guys think about it, let us know.
Yeah. We don't always invite conspiracy theories to comment on our episode, but this time we really do.
Because sometimes the real estate conspiracy theories are the boring ones. Mm-hmm. I think we should really dive into this.
Oh, yes. Let's do it. So,
comment your most crazy conspiracy theory below.
No, for real. If you have thoughts or conspiracy theories of your own that you want to run by us and talk through, feel free to give us a call. You can reach out with our contact info. We'll give you real info, real answers about the Denver real estate market that we're experiencing, not just speculation. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.